All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is noon, and so we will honor everyone's time and dive into WCA Foundation's Project Investment 2024 information session. Thanks so much for joining us. All right, so hello and welcome. I am Julia Ruther. Thanks so much for joining us. I am Program Coordinator of Impact and Collective Giving here at the Minneapolis Foundation. My work encompasses giving circles and advisory committee directed funds like WCA Foundation. Erin Elliott and Takara Henniger join me today. Erin is a WCA member and serves as grant chair on WCA Foundation's advisory board. Takara is grants coordinator for the community impact team here at the Minneapolis Foundation. During our time together today, we are going to walk through the grant guidelines and eligibility guidelines for WCA's project investment grant round. We're going to walk through WCA's member-led grant review process, and then also talk a little bit about just the application submission process as well. We'll hold about 10 minutes or so at the end to answer a few questions from the Q&A function here on Zoom. So as we're moving through the slides, we'll invite you to just, drop questions into the question feature. And then if there are any questions that we don't end up addressing specifically, or if you find yourself with more, there will be a link where you can schedule a 15-minute info session with me after this to answer kind of any follow-up questions that you have. So thank you again for joining us here during your lunchtime, and we're going to dive right in. So Erin, take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Julia. As she mentioned, I am Erin Elliott. I am a WCA member and have been a member since 2018 and also the current grants chair. And I really joined WCA to be closer to community and partner with the people in the organizations that are serving and impacting women. We've had some exciting changes this year with our grant programs, and I'm so proud that these changes align with our strategic framework that is really focused around trust, engagement, and responsiveness. So I just want to take a few minutes and ground you in who the WCA Foundation is. So the WCA Foundation was founded in 1866 and has a robust history of over 150 years of supporting women in Minneapolis and the surrounding suburbs. And in 2020, WCA transitioned from a private foundation to partnership with the Minneapolis Foundation as a signature fund. And today, WCA is a member-led grant-making organization. It's led by a group of women volunteers who comes together to learn about issues affecting women in the Twin Cities and to review grant proposals from organizations addressing those needs. So what does it mean to be a member-led grant-making organization? Well, our members do everything from setting the strategic direction of the organization, determining funding guidelines, reading proposals, engaging with organizations, and ultimately making those funding decisions. And so our partners at the Minneapolis Foundation advise and administer our grant-making work and support our member learning and engagement. And I hope you had noticed in the RFP, our strategic framework. Please take a look at it. Members will be using it as a tool to provide guidance as we explore and evolve our approach as grant makers, our role as facilitators of community-directed solutions, and our impact on women. In January this year, we approved that new strategic framework, and in September, we approved grant changes that allow us to launch 2 new grant programs. The first one, this one right now, is our new project-focused grant round. And we have now moved from 2 open grant rounds to just this one, focusing on project support. And 2 is piloting a new cohort supporting multi-year general operating funds. And this, we'll launch it early this spring. And the participants in this cohort will be selected from organizations that have recently received unrestricted funding from the WCA. And I'll turn it over to Julia.
Thanks, Erin. So for this project investment round, who is eligible to apply? 501c3 nonprofits. You must have your IRS designation as a 501c3 nonprofit to be eligible. We are looking for projects that are led by organizations that are based in the Twin Cities 7-county metro. So your organization should be based in this geography, as well as the delivery of the program or project you're requesting funding for. The project or program must provide direct services addressing basic needs for women ages 18 plus. Let's see, for organizations applying, some kind of nuts and bolts here, we will consider one request per organization per funding cycle. And then organizations that have been recent grantees of WCA Foundation are eligible to apply. So if you've recently in the past year received funding, you are eligible to request for this new project focused funding opportunity. Broadly, what will WCA fund? So to reiterate, it's women-focused initiatives and projects addressing basic needs across 5 priority focus areas: economic stability, education, health, safety, and shelter. In the application itself, you should see this inside the preview document as well as the portal if you've already started an application in there. There is a question in which you need to select one of 5 of these or submit other. And that's really just a function to help organize our review process. The members really recognize the complexity of community need and know that oftentimes your work is crossing 2, 3, 4 of these issue areas. And so it's just a matter of selecting sort of the best fit one to help us organize for the review. Let's see. So further eligibility considerations. There are a list of funding exclusions that I really recommend that you read closely in that preview application document that's linked in the RFP on our webpage. That list includes exclusions like requests for lobbying purposes. Those will not be considered eligible. Requests to organizations for religious purposes or for projects that involve proselytizing or compulsory religious service attendance, for medical research projects or to national health organizations, for deficits already incurred to cover the cost of litigation, or for pro-life or pro-choice projects. If you have questions about this sort of high-level list or any of the specifics in the full list in the RFP, absolutely reach out to me and we can talk through the specifics. What I do want to address today is really what we see as the most common issues with applications that come into the WCA for consideration, and the common eligibility issues really goes back to the population served, right? Like, what does it mean that for a project to be women focused? And so what I'll offer for you is really kind of a distinction around the design of your projects. So we will often see projects that come in where the services are really being designed for like a broad community audience, and it ends up that a majority of the clients served are women. What we're really looking for at the WCA Foundation is projects that are designed specifically to meet the complex needs of women. And so we're really looking for that to be sort of the origin and the function, the key impact that you're looking to serve is women, as opposed to sort of a majority of clients served. Again, happy to talk more specifically about your request, but wanted to name that as a lens through which you can consider that women-focused approach. The second thing that we often get questions about or is a concern around eligibility in the review process is just defining basic needs. WCA members are really not looking to be prescriptive about what basic needs means. And so we give the guidance of those 5 priority focus areas, but we're really looking for you as the applicant to communicate your alignment here. So if you're offering services that may not be among the most sort of traditional or conventional, definition of like the hierarchy of basic needs, the members in the review are really going to look to you to tell the story of why your application or your project is really addressing a basic need in your community. So we'll really lean into that trust-based approach of saying, help us understand the community, the basic needs of your community and how you are serving those basic needs. All right, Erin, I am going to pop back over to you.
Awesome. So what we will fund, looking at our project requests. So the WCA Foundation considers project-specific requests, and the available funds for this round is approximately $675,000. Our grant size, a minimum grant size, $10,000 and maximum $30,000. So we really encourage organizations to ask for what they need. And then our grants awarded, this is approximate to, but around 25 to 30 this cycle. And we strongly encourage, if you are a first-time applicant to the WCA Foundation, please reach out to Julia. She is so happy to answer any questions you have and just make sure that your proposal is as strong as it can be. So kind of looking at the grant review timeline and process. So the grant deadline for this round is January 11th. We then engage in the member review process. So this is really that collective giving, and our partners at the Minneapolis Foundation really guide us and lead us through a fantastic review process. And then notices are sent out no later than June 10th. And for those of you familiar with WCA's process and past grant rounds, you may wonder when the site visits are taking place. And as a part of the program updates in September, the site visits are now happening post-award rather than a part of the review process. And this is really kind of WCA's commitment to trust-based philanthropy. And I will now turn it over to Takara.
Okay, hi everyone. Okay, I'm gonna get on screen. Okay, hi everyone. So I'm gonna walk you through the how to apply portion of our info session today. All right, and so what you'll want to do, the first thing you'll want to do is you'll want to go to minneapolisfoundation.org. All right, there we go. So you'll want to go to the minneapolisfoundation.org page. And then in the top corner here, top right corner, it says login. So go ahead and click login. When you get to the login, one of the things you'll need to do, and actually let me step back. To log in or how you can apply is first what you have to do is you have to create an account for yourself. So I would encourage you to do that really soon. One thing I want to note right here is that we don't have 24-hour tech support. So going in and getting registered is really important to do sooner rather than later. Once you do that, what will happen is it's a 2-step process. And what they'll ask you to do is apply as your organization and then wait until you receive a second email, because again, it's a 2-email process. So wait until you receive the email, and then the second email will help you log in or register as an individual. Once you've been logged in, what you'll do is it's a two-factor authentication process for security purposes. So what you'll want to do is use a telephone number that you readily have access to. Once you log in, what you'll see is you'll come to a page. You might not automatically come to the application portal page, but go ahead and click on application portal. And when you do, what you'll see is that the 2024 WCA Foundation Project Grants opportunity is here. If you click on that, you'll get to the application itself. One thing I'll note here, just point out, once you're inside of the portal, you'll notice the different sections that are available. We provide a preview document. It's really helpful to use that preview document, and I'll share a little bit more in our tips section here. And then I want to also point out another feature, which is once you apply and if you leave the application, please click on My Applications. What that will do is it'll ensure that you don't create like 5 applications as you're coming and going into the application. So I'm going to give a few tips for applying. The first tip is that please use that preview document. We really try hard to ensure that the questions that are asked in the preview documents align with what's actually inside of the portal, including what are all of the attachments that you would use. The other thing is we encourage you to have your own account. Our system, the way it's set up is so that each organization gets its own account. And that way, if you have people who leave the organization or you have consultants working with you, that really the documents, the applications, the final reports, payment, any of that information stays within the org account. We encourage every individual to create an account because that's where the login account is connected to. The other tip is if you already have an account, please reach out to us. And then what we can do is we can update that. So if you had an account with another organization, which some people do, or you had a previous account and you just want to update some contact information, please reach out to us and we can update that for you. Okay, and then with the two-factor authentication number, we ask you for a direct contact or a direct phone line. And the reason why we do this is you want to have access to that at always. So I would offer if you put an office phone in your account, that might not be helpful. What might be more helpful is to use a cell phone or something that you always have access to. The other tip that I'll give is, again, go to My Applications. I already hit that. That will prevent you from creating multiple applications. And then when you submit your application, you'll receive an email that tells you that it's been submitted. And then I think the last advice I'll give is just save and save often. As you're going through the application, save and save often. And then I guess my very, very last tip is, again, there's not 24-hour tech support. So I would offer that you don't wait until that date of January 11th, which is the deadline, and try to register, create an account. That might be, you might be rushing to get in. So I would offer, go ahead and do that as soon as possible and create your account early so that you are ready to enter in all your application information. So I'm gonna go ahead and do some required document tips. One, this is the most important part, is submit all your documents as PDFs. I would refrain from putting in links into your documents. Include your revenue expenses on both your project and your org budget. Focus your list of other funders, which is one of the attachments we request. Make sure you focus that on your project specifically. And then if you use an audit for your balance sheet, make sure that you only upload those financial statement pages and not the full audit. So that's all the tips I have. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Julia.
Awesome. Thank you, Takara. So we are going to open it up now to just questions from the Q&A. So Takara and Aaron and Sarah, if you want to join me on screen, we can speak to some of the questions that have come in and really encourage you all to keep adding them.
So the first question that I see in the chat is, what if your nonprofit does not have a physical address as far as the site visit?
So, that would not be a concern for the review stage. What we would require is that in your IRS documentation, that the address that you include there is a local 7-county metro address in order to meet that geographic eligibility requirement. And then also then that the project that you're requesting funding for, that it will be taking place for the community that you're serving, your clientele, the women that you're serving, that they live within that geographic area. With regard to the site visit, we certainly, like so many organizations, right, have come through a period where we're doing a lot on Zoom. And so if it's appropriate to do that post-funding site visit via Zoom, that can be managed. So really no concern with regard to the site visit, but the geography eligibility requirement is important.
The next question, are these grants only for nonprofits?
So the answer to that is yes. You must have a 501c3 designation from the IRS to be considered for funding.
We would be applying for funds for students attending school while in prison. Would this grant be open for us to apply?
The answer would be determined by that list of eligibility criteria. So if you're meeting, if this program is directed at women ages 18 plus in the 7-county metro, right, and then checking off those other boxes, then yes, it could be considered along with other eligible requests if those students sort of meet those requirements. But the education focus certainly would align.
If multiple organizations apply as a collaborative together, do you need letters of support from each organization?
That's a good question. Takara, I'm gonna have you answer that.
I would say, if you wanted to submit something like that, remember that there will have to be a lead organization. So that lead organization is the one that's holding the 501c3. I would say, make sure you're describing it in the proposal itself. If there is an additional letter that's required, or I know sometimes groups do a MOU or something like that, that we can request that from you. But I would say do a really great job of describing like that partnership, and make sure that the lead organization knows that they're the ones submitting the application, because when if a check is cut, if you are rewarded, it will go to that 501c3. Hopefully that helped. The long and short, don't worry about it right away. Put that information inside of your application. If during the review process we need an MOU or some additional an agreement, then we can ask for that on the back end and not on the front end.
Thanks, Takara. The only thing I would add to that would be that the organization that is the lead applicant and would be receiving the funding needs to be an active participant in delivering the services through that collaborative. So that becomes that piece around sort of the fiscal sponsor function, that the org receiving funding, and this is included in that list of exclusions in the preview document, but the org receiving the funding needs to be delivering the programming.
Next question, will arts-based nonprofits be considered?
Yes, if your work tackles basic needs for women in community, again, we would welcome you to put forward an application that feels, that addresses sort of timely, compelling need in community. If your arts organization is addressing basic needs for women, but it would need to go through the same sort of criteria checklist to be considered.
Say more about the financial documents that are requested in PDF form. Thank you.
Julia, should I take it?
Yes, please.
I'm not sure what you mean by say more, but on the preview document, what we do is we list out all of the required attachments. The reason why we ask for a PDF is because our system will take Excel, but I recommend do not do Excel. You want it to be PDF and you want it to be viewed in the way that you intend it. And so our system will convert it, and you don't want that to happen. You want our members that are reviewing to be able to clearly see what your financial documents are. And then the last one, just around like if you use your audit, we request that you don't submit like your full 20-page audit or however many pages. We request that you really focus on those financial documents that you're uploading and upload only that. Hopefully that helps. If there's more questions, please add a little bit more clarity if there's a specific document that you're wanting to know about.
Thanks, Takara. I would just say that the statement of financial position is one of those required documents. And so that's why we mentioned the audit. For some organizations, your most current snapshot of your financial position might be in your audit. For other organizations, that might be something that you manage through your finance person or team or finance consultant with your board. And so we're really looking for your organization budget, your project budget, your 990, which is required by the IRS, your most recent one, and then that statement of financial position. And that may look different depending on your organization, but we're looking for your kind of most recent current snapshot to date of your finances. So I hope that helps give a little more in addition to what Takara offered.
And hopefully this is not going too much into it, but organizations under a certain budget limit, they get an email that confirms that that's been done. So for your 990, so submit that. That would be the document that we require.
Thank you. The next question is, can our project serve an organization that has participants with ages as young as 15? Knowing that the project funds only cover 18 plus, we would plan to use other funding for younger participants.
This one I would invite maybe a one-on-one conversation. What I might offer, and then Erin, maybe add a little depth here if you want. Your applications will be part of a pool of other eligible applications in a very competitive grant cycle. One of the things that we have seen over the course now of the 3 years of WCA Foundation's partnership with the Minneapolis Foundation is that we are seeing more and more applications come in. This was a piece of the members, really thoughtful, like 18-month kind of exploration of how can we redesign our program so that we're making sure that our partners, you all, organizations in the nonprofit ecosystem, are not investing hours and hours in submitting an application that ultimately either isn't eligible or just isn't strongly aligned with WCA's funding strategy. And so that would be the kind of question that I would offer back to this. This particular question is whether this is going to be a really strongly aligned request. You can, I think invest time in making a budget that tells that story about how funding will be used and articulating it in your application. But just remember that you're among a pool of other applications that are doing that sort of same alignment work in their application. So I just would offer back to you to be thoughtful about whether the alignment is worth your time for the application. Erin, is there anything else you might want to say just about the members' approach to the review?
Yeah, I think if there is a compelling narrative around kind of that 18 plus direct service for women, I think absolutely submit it, but I would encourage a phone call with Julia too, just to make sure that you know, not getting too tied up in funding sources and more about the program that's serving women.
If you started an application prior to the open cycle and that started application appears to be saved on the portal, do you need to start a new application specifically under this grant cycle?
Yep, the long and short is, yep, you want to make sure that the application is for this current grant cycle, because what will happen is, yeah, start the new application. And I think there's like 2 things that have been updated in the application. So if you were using an old one, those things might not actually be there. I just recommend go ahead and use this application that just opened up.
All right, next question. Does an ongoing program serving women meet your definition of project?
Yes, definitely. I think we use the framework as project to really communicate that this is restricted funding. So it could be a project or a program within your broader organization.
And you define basic needs in regards to education.
You know, I would reiterate what I said earlier in the presentation, which is really that WCA members are not offering sort of definitions for basic needs. We're really looking to you all as nonprofits serving community, building programs that are designed for the specific needs that you're seeing sort of day in and day out. And you really tell us what you're seeing to be the basic need in that issue area for your community. And I'm, again, happy to talk more one-on-one.
I think this is a different take on that collaborative question. Can nonprofits be a part of more than one application? For example, if a nonprofit applies as part of a collaborative in one grant, can that same organization also apply for its own separate application for its work?
I'll start us off, Julia, which is one around the lead applicant. So if you are the lead applicant, Julia and Erin, you tell me if this is completely off base, but I would say you want one application for your organization as a lead. Do you guys feel differently about that and how? Okay.
I think, what I would offer is that WCA members will fund a project once. And so if you are an organization that's included in a collaborative that organization X is applying for funding for, and then you come in as organization Y for funding for the same project, we wouldn't consider both of those. Or certainly I would be very unlikely that the members would fund them both. So I would take that into consideration. If you're an organization requesting funding for a distinctly different project, then that might be something that we would consider. But again, this is maybe getting into a little too much detail, so we would want to talk. But I think the key piece to consider is that the eligible requests move through to that 40 plus member volunteer group to consider for review. So they'll read through them and then select those that they feel are most timely and compelling, and really most strong, move from just baseline eligible to really the most strongly aligned. And so what I would see as a preference inside the membership they would continue to look back to those guidelines and say, is this sort of double funding? So
can I offer one more thing around the title? So if you are the lead and you apply more than once, really use that title. I know sometimes when people use title, they don't use the title of their application. They actually use the title of their organization. I would offer, if you are doing that and you are submitting, make it real clear. use that title function, which is, again, right when you start your application, it's going to ask you to create a title for your proposal.
All right, so we have staff provide direct services to victims of domestic violence and financial abuse. Can any part of direct services staff be covered?
Absolutely. As you're putting together your project budget that you're requesting funding for, we certainly hope that you are building in your operating costs for that project or proposal. We want to help you fund your staff delivering those services.
We are a faith-based nonprofit, but can we apply for basic needs, food, clothing, shelter when women enter our program if they are not receiving the faith-based part of our program?
I definitely would say for any organization, if you're seeing yourself inside that exclusion list, reach out to me specifically. But I would say, so I guess I'm just going to offer a maybe to that question and let's talk more.
Is suburban Ramsey considered to be the 7-county metro area?
Ramsey County is one of the 7 counties, yes.
Can you clarify if applying for this round would eliminate nonprofits from potentially being funded as a multi-year project?
Yes, so the prospect list for the multi-year general operating program has already been identified, and that process of selecting the cohort is underway. So if you're included in that pilot program, you would know now. We'll be announcing the grantee cohort here late winter or early spring.
If your partnership collaborates with women-focused nonprofit, but you're the one providing the services to benefit the women, who should submit the grant?
I might need you to repeat that, sorry.
If your partnership collaborates with a women-focused nonprofit, but you're the one providing the services to benefit the women, who should submit the grant?
I think the organization delivering the services. This is really where the design of your project or program comes into play, right? Like think about looking at the narrative application, think about how you're designing the budget that you're using to deliver this project, right? And I think looking at those two should help you determine who should be the recipient of the funding and managing the grant program. Let's do like one more question, Sarah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have there been changes to the application from the past round?
Really, the only significant or meaningful change from the last grant round is with regard to that WCA members are now considering only project requests as opposed to both general operating and project specific requests. So we've really just the overarching questions are the same. It's just that opportunity to select a type of funding has changed. So any language around that would have changed, but otherwise no meaningful changes.
Can I lift up one more question because I think this would be great for the group? Can you discuss the strategic change away from general operating to project-based funding, especially as it fits into trust-based philanthropy principles?
Absolutely, that is a great question. And I'll take the lead, and then Erin and Takara, if feel free to jump in. So it's important to look at the shift to project-specific funding for this grant round as a part of sort of the suite of the two programs now that WCA is managing. And so really what WCA members have heard and have been really seeking to be able to do with their stewardship of this fund is to offer more general operating support to deepen relationships with organizations that are aligned with WCA here in the Metro. And so what they have done with separating the two programs is they've actually moved to commit more of their annual grant budget to unrestricted funding through that pilot program. So it's a shift now from approximately like 9% of funding over the last couple of years of their total grant dollars have gone to Gen Op grants that have come through this biannual competitive process to now that they are upfront, they're dedicating 20% of their operating, of their grant making funding to Gen Op dollars. So I think that's really the kind of clearest way is that they're actually committing more dollars, and now through multi-year partnership, they're really providing that commitment to those partners of 2 years of funding in the pilot. So I think that to me at the high level is really from a trust-based philanthropy perspective, you know, sort of the first call for funders is multi-year general operating funding. And so WCA is responding to that. All right. Well, thank you for so many great questions. I hope we were able to offer information that helps you consider whether submitting an application to WCA Foundation's investment project investment round is, you know, a good strategy for your organization right now. If you still have outstanding questions that would help you make that decision about whether or not you want to submit a request, please drop me a line. Sarah is going to put a link to my Calendly scheduler here in the chat, and then you also are welcome to just reach out to me via email. Let me share my screen real quick, and I'll put contact info on the screen for both Takara and myself. One second. So if you have questions about the guidelines, eligibility, those are really something for us to talk about. If you have questions about your login or the application that you've already started in the portal, that kind of thing, that is a question for Takara. Let's see. There, that's the slide I wanted. And yeah, hope that you will be in touch, and just appreciate the time that you spent with us here this afternoon to get to know WCA Foundation's funding strategy better here today. And yeah, thanks to Erin, Takara, and Sarah, and look forward to being in touch with many of you again here soon. So thank you so much.